Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar. And we've got a fabulous panel for you today. And we're going to be talking about building a best-of-breed support team for today's new normal. And before I start, this is very much your webinar. So we want you to get involved, ask questions, fire questions at our panelists, and we've got some great panelists as said for you. And the way to ask the questions, there are two ways. First of all, if you look at your control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, you can ask live via the microphone. So simply click on the microphone. We can then unmute you and you can ask your questions live. Alternately, you can ask via the questions module. So simply type your question into the module and we'll pick up on the question and I will direct it at our panelists. So before we start, let me introduce our panelists to you. And our first panelist is Oliver Nass, and he's the Vice President of America's Customer Service and Support for Hitachi. He's very much focused on customer experience excellence and delighting the customers through their post-sales experience. He leads an organization of 200 plus with wide expertise, many specialities. So he's got a great support organization he's responsible for. And one of his major challenges, he says, is to support enterprises globally as they embrace digital transformation. To meet these challenges, he sees transforming from customer support in his team to customer advocacy as a strategic journey all best-in-class organizations must embrace. He's also an audiophile and a videophile with a deep passion for pure audio perfection in jazz. And is a father, a husband of 25 years, and has a daughter at university. So Oliver, tell us a little bit about Hitachi.
Hey, good afternoon. So Hitachi Vantara, the company I represent, is a company that is really at the forefront of the digital transformation. We provide business solutions to customers in the form of either data infrastructure, but also digital business solutions. We're very much driven on what is the business outcome today, as opposed to just the technology play of past years. And we have consultative practices. We also provide our own infrastructure to our customers, both in the Americas and globally as well. So just a little bit of a background on us. Thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to join you here this afternoon.
Super. And our next panelist is John Kampas. And John is the founder of EMPIST. He founded the company in 2000. He grew EMPIST to over 100 employees with 4 locations in 2 continents. And prior to EMPIST, he worked for the largest data center company in the world. He's a previous presenter to the cloud service community. He's a regular speaker on business and technical events worldwide. He's an owner-operator that loves to geek it out with his team. So, John, tell us a little bit about EMPIST.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you for the introduction and happy to be here. Just really quick high-level info on EMPIST. Founded in 2000, we were very early adopters of managed services and managed security services. We provide B2B services to companies worldwide, and we have 2 main divisions within the company. We have our IT side, which is going to be managed services, cybersecurity, cloud operations, and on the other side, we have digital. Digital for us includes development, applications, e-commerce, web development, and business process improvement. We are also developers of the product called Deskwear.
Excellent. And our third panelist is Eric Torres. And Eric is the Director of Channel Development of Datto. He joined Datto in March of 2015. Prior to that, he ran the Datto sales operations and business practices for a successful 65-person MSP out of Milwaukee. And so Eric has seen things from both sides of the house. Once named CRN Magazine's 100 People You Don't Know But Should list, and has recently been promoted to his current role as director at Datto. Eric brings his passion for business continuity in the MSP community to this role and focuses on supporting the Datto partner community in growing their business. So, Eric, tell us just a little bit about Datto.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on the panel. Datto, we cut our teeth in business continuity. That's what a lot of MSPs and our partners have known us for. We have since added a number of solutions on top of that as well. So we have business management tools, a full networking stack, and just different options for backing up all of your data. And we look at backing up data as just another layer of security. The threats that are out there certainly aren't going away. So it's our job to help keep our partners and even more so their clients up and running if anything does happen.
Fabulous. So before we start, so we can level set where we all are, we're going to start with a poll. So, and the poll is, what are your biggest support challenges today? Is it supporting the increased needs of customers working from home, maintaining the morale of my support team, monitoring customer satisfaction with our support service, maintaining the profitability of my support offering, or dealing with security issues of the safety issues of on-prem support? So please, if you could, click those buttons and answer the poll. Love to see where everyone is. And we've got about 50% of people on the call have voted. You can tick multiple boxes, so get those votes in. Got about 65% of people who have voted now. Please keep those votes coming in. I'll leave the poll open for another few seconds, just for the last few of you to vote. So get those votes in now. Okay, and let's have a look at where we all are. So if we look at the answers, 75% of us see our biggest challenge as maintaining the profitability of my support offering, followed by monitoring customer satisfaction with our support service and supporting the increased needs of customers working from home. And I wonder, basically, if Oliver, you'd like to comment on this to start with.
On specifically which one?
Just the results and how people feel.
Oh, so I'm not surprised. These are very much my own feelings. I'll kind of start from the bottom up, actually. So supporting increased needs of customers working from home. I mean, the new norm is basically organizations working from home. And again, we have customers, contacts who support very large data centers. And then I've got a field organization. There's a lot more coordination that needs to go into how to support a customer on site, which is driving a very specific need to add more and more remote services. My hope is that remote would become, grow organically, because in previous quarters and years, there was resistance because of security, quite frankly. And I looked at this whole COVID situation as an opportunity for remote services, but it didn't happen right away. But I see now that there is organic growth and people embracing remote services and overcoming the security obstacles and willing to have those conversations. Monitoring the customer satisfaction, look, we take that very seriously. All of our incident cases, some people refer to them as tickets, are followed up post-incident with a small survey. We do on a monthly basis track all of those results against our peers and industry averages out there. So again, if your company doesn't have a practice around monitoring your tickets post-incident, that should be absolutely a priority, because that's what guides you. I take that data very seriously. It's one of my biggest reviews on a monthly basis. And then from a profitability standpoint, look, remote services and combined with on-site provides cost challenges, and now having folks in their home environments adds extra cost because you need them to have the right tools and everything. And so again, you can look at this problematically or look at it as an opportunity and really try and reinvent the way you deliver the customer experience, as opposed to how you did it 6 months ago, and really look forward, because again, I don't think this is going away. And so we all need to adjust or adapt to where we're going now. And the good news is there are no experts. I always sit there and say you're an expert at the moment you actually figure something out, and then the next day provides a whole new set of challenges, because this is all very new to everyone. So thank you, Ron.
My pleasure. And John, you're dealing with this on a daily basis. How do you feel? How does this mirror what you're seeing in your business?
Pretty much the same. We've had a number of. It's not surprising to me to see the results from the survey. One of the ones that we look at, even at 17%, just dealing with the safety issues, that's something that nobody was really prepared for, even just the safety. I mean, as a managed service provider, we certainly had distributed teams and we were able to work in a distributed manner. So, maintaining the profitability wasn't as big of a concern for us. However, for companies that did not have the tools in place, who needed to quickly invest in tools in order to work in a distributed way, it's definitely impacting their profitability, even just from a bottom line perspective, because perhaps they needed to invest in new technologies and new tools in order to support their customers while their customers were remote, not just their customers being remote, but also their staff and engineers being remote as well. Now, they probably didn't make a price increase to their customers if it wasn't already baked into their cost. So that's something to really be concerned about, and I have some ideas on how companies can really address that. But just dealing with the safety issues, that's something that you have to be concerned with. With everybody, and even just during this pandemic, just the psyche of getting out. People are afraid to get out many times, and them asking them to then go to a customer site to address a server issue or an infrastructure issue, you need to make sure that we have certain precautions and safety measures in place to keep everybody safe and to keep your employees and your customers safe.
Excellent. And Eric, any final thoughts on this?
Yeah, the thing that I think, whether this poll happened today or last year pre-COVID, maintaining the profitability would have been number one across the board. That's always the highest priority and the most difficult things that MSPs face and service providers face. What I do find a little bit interesting is I would have thought that the increased support for the working from home would have been a little higher. That is still a high number, 42%, but I would have expected that to be somewhere right around that 75% mark as well.
Excellent. So we're now going to move to questions and answers with our panelists. I'm going to chip in with a couple of questions to start with, but if everyone, as I say, this is your webinar, so come in with your questions, I'll pick up on them, and we'll take it from there. But let's start with managing a support team, because our support teams, many of them have been, and particularly for many people on the call, they've been in an office, they've been together, now we're having to manage them in a distributed environment. And John, what are the key lessons that you've had from this, and how would you advise people on the call to manage that?
Well, thankfully, so we actually had something similar to this and part of a continuity plan, so we were able to work in a distributed way. So we had the appropriate tools, the systems, the monitoring, everything that was required in order to really operate in a distributed way. But for companies that have struggled with this, I know it was a challenge. It was a challenge not just for IT companies, for really every company out there working in a distributed way when they were not familiar or accustomed to working in a distributed way. So from a support team perspective, specifically, you have to make sure that you have the right tools in place. Your stack needs to be solid. If you were strictly on premise, you needed to be in an office in order to operate. Well, you quickly found out that that was not a method of providing the support that was needed if you weren't in the cloud. If you weren't in the cloud, doesn't necessarily need to be a public cloud. It can even be in the private cloud environment, but you need to have the proper staff in order to operate regardless of where you are located in the world, because your customers expect you to be available 24/7, 365, no matter what happens to your physical office. So, you know, some of the things, tools, documentation, you know, proactive communication, self-help were all things that we utilize in order to operate in an effective and a productive manner remotely.
Let's get specific, John. You talk about tools. What do you think are the key? If I'm, you know, perhaps I don't employ the 100 people that you do in your business, but what are the key tools I should be focused on? What should I have in place to help me to manage this?
Well, I mean, you need a proper RMM tool, remote monitoring and management tool, something that can provide you the ability of providing support and be device agnostic. Again, not being locked into your particular office or your desk, having anywhere, anytime access. You need a proper ticketing platform, PSA, in order to properly log and engage issues for your customers, and also track time that's being reported by your engineers to identify any areas that might require you know, manager involvement or even a learning curve. And you also need communication tools. You know, thankfully so, this happened to us now, and it didn't happen to us 10 or 15 years ago, because it would have been a complete nightmare. But if you're not using collaboration tools such as, just as an example, Microsoft Teams to be able to collaborate, or a Slack type communication tool where you can collaborate in near real time to collaborate with your team and address issues for your customers quickly, just like you would if you needed to tap somebody on the shoulder, then you're probably struggling.
Okay. And I'm getting a real a raft of questions coming in. So let me cut across that for the moment. And one of the questions I've got here is a question about the fact that work from home is generating a lot more support work. Many of the people on the call are on fixed price contracts per person per month with their customers. And they're seeing, because of work from home, the volume of support going through the roof. How do you suggest they deal with that? Do you approach the customer and ask for more money, which may be very, very difficult in today's environment? Who wants to come in on that one?
I could take that one. We definitely see that with amongst the Datto partners, and not to, you know, in hindsight, it is the way that those contracts are written as well, where the ones that we're seeing most success with, those are the ones that wrote any home use that's outside of the scope of what we're doing. For those that didn't have that verbiage in there, unfortunately, that is a delicate conversation to have with the client, saying, hey, things are way different now. And what I would recommend is talking more along the lines of the hardware people are using in their home environments. Are they using what they were using in the office? Were they able to take that home? Or are they using home use laptops without security built into it, the same feature set that MSP or that provider would have warranted? And that's the approach I would take, and say, look, we're dealing with home users that have a number of home issues, you know, everything from printing and connecting, and the hardware they're using. That might be the angle to take. And then there are some of our partners that are, unfortunately, just they're locked in, and then there are those customers of theirs that they can't go back to and change the agreements. So at that point, it becomes more about productivity and speed and timing. And John, you had said in your previous comment about PSA and tracking time. That is another thing that is key right now, because if we're not in the office, your engineers are not at your client's locations, it's very easy for that client to say, what are your guys doing? How are you maintaining without physically being here? So through a PSA, you're able to track all that time, track all the work that you're doing. So maybe tie that right into the conversations you're having, saying, look at the amount of hours. They have skyrocketed based on this, and show them the reporting.
Oliver, any thoughts on this one? I know it's a challenge for an awful lot of people.
It is a challenge for my organization as well, because we've got different tiers of agreements with our customers, and right now our customers are asking to do more and more work in that mid-tier outside of what they're really should be, what they're paying for, and they're wanting to move more into a premium space. And so, you know, while it's difficult times, right, having a conversation about moving a customer up into a new tier, which means you know, more payment for them, is not a bad discussion right now. It's just a difficult one, right? And I think a lot of folks in business, they blend together bad timing with difficult timing. And the reality is the world is changing and will for the foreseeable future. And I think with the time tracking conversation that's already been had, take those the kind of the learning from the time tracking and use those to demonstrate the extra value add to your customers, and then turn around and have that discussion about, hey, can you move up into a more premium level of service offering with my organization? So again, we can approach these things as being problematic, or we can approach them as being an opportunity. And I would rather collect the data, sit down and have the discussion, which again is not a bad discussion, just a difficult one, and try and upsell them into that premium level of service, quite frankly, and turn it around into an opportunity. And that obviously addresses revenue, profitability, all of those factors, but it also ultimately lets us all provide a better customer experience in the end. And I truly believe that 100%. Thank you.
John, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I do agree with Eric and Oliver, but just one thing to throw out there, you know, because if you had a contract that was structured where you did have somebody on site as well, you know, you don't want that customer to have that conversation with you and say, well, you don't have somebody on site right now, let's reduce our monthly spend. And you know, the initial, in March when all this happened, I mean, everybody thought they were just going to go work from home for a week or two. I remember my marketing manager said, oh, I told my marketing team, you know, just pack your stuff up, you'll be back in 2 weeks. And now we're this far into it. So nobody really knows how long this is going to go. I think the conversation, you just need to be careful with that conversation that you're going to have. Know your cost, your true cost of service delivery. Understand what the cost, your true cost is to deliver that service to the customer when they're strictly working in a distributed way. And if the numbers don't make sense for you and you cannot maintain the costs in order to operate your business, then certainly have that conversation. But it's also an opportunity to restructure the agreement. You know, maybe you can offer them one thing that we've been doing that a lot of our customers like is, you know, we'll offer them like office in a box, right? Or like a remote kit to give them some of the technology at their house. And those are opportunities. Okay, we don't have our people on site anymore. And that was a cost to me to have somebody on site, but I can improve the productivity of your team and the security of your team by, you know, purchasing the following, or, you know, swapping the following services for what you were accustomed to from an on-site perspective.
Okay, cool. And I got another really good question coming in. Any tips from the panelists for maintaining the morale of my support team? We had a great morale in the office. Trying to maintain that remotely has been difficult. Oliver, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So I say to my managers all the time, what we need to do is communicate with our teams, right? So we've been scheduling kind of like virtual sessions where we kind of set up like almost like an atmosphere where we're all out at a bar having a drink. We do it after hours, of course, and people come together and just chit chat and talk about the families and all the things you would do if you were out with your colleagues and your friends, right? And so we've been trying to schedule those on a frequent basis. We also spend more time talking with individuals. I myself, even though there's literally 200 plus people in the organization, I've committed myself to speaking to no less than 40 approximately folks on a monthly basis, just by reaching out with like literally like a 2-3 minute phone call or Teams call or Zoom call or whatever tool everybody is using, and just asking them how they're doing. You know, it's amazing, but before COVID, I don't think many of us as leaders in organizations reached out enough and just asked our folks how they were doing. And right now, that's the most important question. And it's not about how they're doing at work or with a customer specifically, but it's how they doing in their lives, right? Because we're all facing new challenges, working from home and being isolated, not being able to, you know, go out and do things. So honestly, it just comes down to more frequent communication. Doesn't have to be a lot in time. 2-3 minutes is enough. But I think people just will appreciate being asked how they're going.
Mm-hmm. John, how are you dealing with this?
Well, we're having regular communication. You know, we actually have an all hands every 2 weeks just to get everybody on board. One of the really cool things, I wasn't expecting it, but we have some of our staff who aren't as musically challenged as I am. So, you know, one thing we've introduced during the end of our all hands, we actually have certain staff members that will actually play like a little concert for us, which is pretty cool. Yeah, you know, sing and drums and guitar, everything. And I mentioned we actually have an international office in Athens, Greece. We even had some Greek singers too, which it really just builds like this close bond. You know, as Oliver said, the mental side of it is extremely important. I mean, I am a father of 3 children, young children who are now doing remote school, which is challenging. And my wife also works with EMPIST, so we're both trying to manage work and school together now. The challenging issues of just trying to manage school schedule as well. So, you know, just having those conversations with people, put the customer aside, put everything else aside, like, how are you doing? We're here for you. And the surprise bottle of tequila doesn't hurt either.
I can add to that, to the bottle of tequila. So, and this is something that we just did Tuesday, and I was sharing it with the group before our call started here. What we did is just randomly, we had a team. It was I think about 15 of us, and what Datto did is sent us all 4 bottles of wine, and we had a virtual wine tasting with a sommelier, and it was a little over an hour, and it was fantastic. It was a good team bonding event. We've also done something similar with the music as well. We had an open, kind of like an open mic on Zoom where everybody could just join in, and I am equally as musically challenged, so I was just an observer. And then just adding to what both Oliver and John have said, I think the communication that we've seen amongst our team has skyrocketed. And my team, we're all over the country, all over North America, really. And we rarely see each other in person to begin with. So we might go 2, 3, 4 weeks without talking to each other. And now it's become every single day. We have a call every single day, and our entire team, the business development team at Datto, we've had a weekly happy hour scheduled. I can't even remember, it's been going on for months. Every Thursday, we've got a happy hour at the end of the day and just let loose. And we went through all of the stories we could add over the past 4 months. So now we started to make it interesting with even trivia, or each one of us is on the docket to come up with a list of questions, true or false, and see how many people can guess the right answers, and just fun things you could do amongst the teams to just keep the morale up.
Excellent. And I've got another great question coming in now, and it's to do with on-site safety. Can the panel please give specific things that I can do to protect my teams that are going on site to my clients?
Sure. Let me take that one. So, you know, I've got a big on-site team, right, all across the Americas. So we've done a few things. So first of all, very early on, and we struggled with this, we got PPE for our employees, right? So we made sure that they were armed with masks and gloves. We made sure that they had the right resources to go to learn about how to deal with given situations, how to deal with contact, what they should be cautious about. We used, websites like the CDC, the WHO, and other things to help guide us. And then we also have a business continuity management team globally in our company, which I'm actually a member of. And so we provide a good level of knowledge transfer and education. The other thing is I put into effect an essential services delivery model. So every on-site visit in the Americas is presented to me in a small template via email, and I approve every single case that goes on in the Americas on a daily basis. And basically what I look for is it essential? Can it be done remotely? And we're starting to really interact with our customers to figure out how to deliver on-site differently, so that we can limit the amount of exposure that our CE community has out there. I also, my customers and I to our customers, we reached out to each other, and I think I spoke with individuals from about over 150 companies through different questionnaires about business continuity management that they had, and keeping them informed what our delivery practices are now during this COVID period and everything. So again, it's really what we talked about with our own employees' morale. It comes down to communication, understanding the customer's requirements, and as importantly, them understanding your safety requirements as well. And the great part of this all is I haven't had a single customer push back on me from one end of the Americas to the other. So clearly, that just demonstrates that we're all in this together, and we all have the same challenges, and we all have the same opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very similar to what Oliver said. Just one other thing that we've done, in addition to the PPE, I mean, certainly anybody that's going on site, we want to make sure that they're protected and they feel comfortable. We've also, we had a questionnaire with our team that was in the field, who feels more comfortable than others. There are individuals within the team that are at a higher risk, and we needed to be able to identify that, maybe not just for their own purposes, but people that they care for as well. So we wanted to remove those people from that rotation. Essential, it needed to be an emergency, but we would also have conversations with the customer to understand, was anybody tested positive within the building, not just, within their suite. And then also just scheduling the on-site for hours that when nobody was there, after hours, early morning, have less traction, less people in the office, to give people more comfort of going on site.
I can add to this as well. So one of the things that Datto has is a moving back to the office checklist, and that's available. And I'll share it with anybody that would like it. But there's pieces of that I think that apply to this. And the overwhelming theme of this conversation today is communication right now. And I think that's key with the client, with your client, letting them know the steps you're taking to keep your staff safe, but also finding out what steps they're taking. And then once they tell you that, it's relaying that message to your team. Because me personally, if I were walking into an environment that I didn't know anything about, I would feel a little uneasy. But if I walked in and I had a phone call ahead of time saying, here's exactly what they've been doing to keep their employees safe, that would put me at more ease. So overwhelmingly, it's just communication and having those conversations with your clients and your staff.
Excellent. I've got another great question here. I've got a raft of them coming in. So everyone on the call, if you can keep these questions coming in, that'd be great. And this one's about monitoring performance. We were really good about monitoring performance when the support team was together in the office. Have the panelists got any suggestions of any remote tools that will help me monitor the performance of my support team now working remotely? John, I don't know whether you want to come in on that one.
Well, you first need to know what monitoring performance really means and what KPIs are important to you. What is it? Ticket closure? Is it response time? Is it first call to resolution? You need to identify what's important to you. But as I said earlier, have the right tools for time tracking. Make sure you're reinforcing time trackings. Identify areas that things are taking longer to resolve. One of the tools, we also introduced a tool for our remote teams that we were using previously, which was called HubStaff, that allowed us to our team to be able to track what they're doing on their system, and then also make it much easier to record things that were unrelated to tickets. So any of that research time, any of that development time that was required, there are tools that will give you that, but really identify what the metrics are, which metrics are most important, because the workday is also being extended by your engineering team. Don't confine them to an 8 to 5, what they're doing 8 to 5. You'll be surprised. You might find them doing work after hours, and you want to be able to account for that time and their overall utilization.
Okay, and what was the name of that tool, John?
I'm not promoting it in any, I mean, we use it. I'm not affiliated with it. It's called Hubstaff.
Excellent. Oliver, thoughts on this one?
We're a user of Salesforce in our organization, so we use Salesforce for the full 360 view of the customer. Salesforce does have support metrics and everything. All the KPIs that John described are in there. But there was a transition, right? Most of our work was on site, skewed to like probably 95% versus 5% remote. And so we actually had to build in some new, categories of remote capabilities into Salesforce for our cases, so that we would get the right KPIs, as John also suggested, and understanding what KPIs are important to you. So that's how we're basically viewing that. And from a tool perspective, it is Salesforce. So thank you.
Excellent. Eric, any thoughts? Eric, are you there? Can you hear me?
There we go. Okay, I was muted and it wasn't letting me unmute there for a second. I don't know of any specific software like John had mentioned. I know that it's out there. It comes down to, like John said, what are you really measuring? And through your PSA and your RMM, you'll be able to see that response times, the length of resolution time. I also think that part of it comes down to what you expect out of your employees as well. I don't think there is such a thing as an 8-hour workday anymore. It's gone away. I find myself yesterday alone, I was at my desk it was over 12 hours. I split it up, and I think most people at home are doing the same thing because they're doing all of it. They're their children's teacher. They're keeping their home in order, and they're taking care of the clients. So maybe things are happening after hours that you may not be aware of.
Okay, and I've got another question here, which is our support requirement has gone through the roof. I'm thinking of using external support services to help me out. Has anyone got any experience of doing this? Any tips? Do you even think it's a good idea? John, maybe I can start with you on this one.
Well, here we go. I was muted. Sorry about that. So we don't use any external support in order to provide services. That's just, how we operate as a company. I think that if the situation comes down to where you cannot provide the services that you're contractually obligated to and you need to outsource it, then do it, because you're going to find yourself in much larger issues if you're not delivering the support that's needed. And even if it's just a stopgap approach for you to give you some additional capacity during this time where you have a higher volume of issues. I know companies, though, managed service providers that do utilize outsource help desk. I just can't speak specifically to that. That's not the model that we adhere to. But if you're even looking at it for a temporary basis, if you can't deliver your SLA that you've committed to, then you're going to have other issues, because you're going to have customers looking for other companies to provide them the services that they need.
Eric, you were nodding on that one. Do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, same exact thing. I know that we have a ton of Datto partners that do utilize services like that, and you just have to be prepared. And like John had said, you have to meet those SLAs. There are a number of great outsourced companies to turn to, and that's what they do. They specialize in it, and even some here in North America, because I do know that may be an issue too. If suddenly your support staff is somebody that your clients aren't used to working with, that could hurt your reputation as well, especially if you don't communicate exactly what you're doing with that. So yeah, nothing that we're doing internally here, but a lot of our Datto partners are doing exactly that.
Oliver, any final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, we do utilize outsourced service partners. It's probably about a 70-30, so 70% is our own employees, 30% outsourced. In field services particularly, I leverage them for what I call remedial activities, and the conversation that John and Eric just had around SLA, meeting SLAs, that's really key, and then understanding your KPIs behind those SLAs and making sure that your service partner understands that as well. It adds an extra level of management or what I call oversight to your organization when you go that route. And it's, but again, it is a good business strategy to do that. And in this time where support is, quite frankly, scaling out horizontally and exploding, I think was the word used in the question, right? You almost have to look at, can I augment my team with an external service provider? And there are many good ones out there that you can leverage. You just really need to understand their business and your business, and map the SLAs and KPIs together so that you've got the metrics to manage each other against, quite frankly. That's where it really comes down to. And you will have success with it. So by all means, I would encourage anyone to go that route. But again, I would use it as a way to augment your offerings, is the way to approach it.
Okay.
One thing I'd like to add that I thought of, what we've seen a couple of our partners do is when they did get overwhelmed with the work that was coming in, they turned to us to set them up with another managed service provider, one that's not in their competing area, but somebody on the exact same stack, to turn to them and say, look, if you've got any engineers that are looking for time, let's work something out between us, because I've got work. So the mutual working with other MSPs, I've seen a lot of that as well.
Yeah, I'd like to add one more thing, Rod, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So the ticket volume did increase initially. It skyrocketed, but it shouldn't be still at that level. If it's still at that level, there are other conversations and things that you'll need to do with those customers. It might not be the right customer. If you're still getting a high volume of tickets from those same customers, you need to have a conversation with them to reduce that, because you should not be experiencing still today, right? I mean, from March to today, the same volume of tickets that you had the third week of March or going in April. If that's still the case, you need to evaluate those tickets, identify what those tickets are for, see if you can streamline or simplify the amount of time that's taking, or maybe even automate it before considering to outsource that, in my opinion.
Great point.
Okay, and I got another good question coming in, and it's about monitoring customer satisfaction. Any tips on how to monitor customer satisfaction? We send out surveys endlessly, but hardly anyone ever completes them. So who would like to jump in on that one? John, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah,
Sure.
I think.
Yeah. Go ahead, Eric. You go ahead. Go ahead, Eric.
There's a couple of options that are out there. There are services you can add to that where you've seen the emails where it's a frowning face, a smiling face, something like that. That's a real easy way to get that instant satisfaction data. Surveys is another way, and a lot of the tools that us vendors have, some of that is built right into it. But yeah, there are options out there. There's two that come to mind right away that do exactly that for managed service providers.
And what are those two?
Crewwho, and the second one, I'm struggling to remember the name. I remember the person that runs it. I'll respond to you if you want to send it out afterwards. But Crewwho is a company that does exactly that. It's satisfaction surveys and things like that.
Can you spell that for the audience, Eric?
Yeah, CREWHU.
Yes.
Real quick.
Crewwho. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the other one I believe is a customer thermometer. I believe that.
Thermometer. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah, I mean, the surveys are important. Make sure that you're surveying your customers throughout the life cycle of a ticket, not just at the end of it. You need to understand what their satisfaction level is as you're engaging, as you're working on the resolution of that request. But you need to also strengthen the relationships that you have with the customers. Make sure you have a dedicated account manager, strategic account manager, someone who's working with that customer and understanding what challenges that business is having. Because you have three personas essentially in a customer. You have the user, you have the customer, and you have the sponsor, right? I mean, the user are the people that we're working with every day. The customer is the one who is, sometimes it's the same person, but let's just say that you have your users that you're working with, tickets, you have the customer who has agreed to partner with you, and you have the sponsor or the person who has funded the engagement with you, who has actually provided that budget. You need to make sure that you're speaking to all levels of that persona within the customer and making sure that their satisfaction is at the level that's needed. But the easiest way to get more instant feedback is, as Eric mentioned, the surveys.
Okay. Oliver, any thoughts on this one?
I can't really add to what these two gentlemen said. I mean, we follow all the same practices. We utilize email combined with telemarketing, and forgive me, I don't know the organization that does that on our behalf, but again, it's very, very important data. It helps us to really measure the health of our organization from a customer experience standpoint. And to John's point, it's one thing to measure post-incident. For P1 and P2 type scenarios, we certainly look at what's happening during the incident, right? I personally join many of the P1 incidents, whether it's on a weekend or middle of the night, because I really want to stay close to the customers, and helps keep me honest in my thinking about how my team's approaching things too. So again, I would say to the leadership of these organizations, get involved in some serious support incidents to understand how your team is being challenged by the customer, how they're delivering to the customer, and it gives you great insight on where you need to evolve the organization from a support experience standpoint.
Excellent. I got another wonderful question coming in, and I think you mentioned this earlier, John. And the question is, customers are demanding we support them over a longer period of time because of work from home and them working unusual hours. My team is also working unusual hours, but also supporting the family. How do we deal with the remuneration for the support team in this situation?
Mm-hmm. Well,
who wants to come in on that one?
I could start with that. So it's definitely a concern, especially from a management perspective. Depending on how deep your service desk is or your support team, you might consider staggering some shifts to give them more of a staggered shift approach, as opposed to having everybody start 8 to 5, because all your requests are not coming 8 to 5. Normal business hours has gone beyond 5 o'clock. We still see an uptick of tickets coming in at 6, 7, 8, 9 p.m. when that was usually trickling down when everybody was working in the office. So just staggering those shifts, giving people more of a shift that they can plan for, especially with everything that's happening, work from home. And just make it, you got to make it easy for your team as well to provide services. That's why I mentioned early on the tools. They have to have the tools to be productive and to be efficient. If they're utilizing tools that are not making them effective and providing them the best type of customer experience possible, as a manager, as an owner, you need to invest in those tools as quickly as possible in order to make your team more efficient and to make your customers happier.
Oliver, thoughts?
We've seen a very different trend, right? Our first, initially back in March, our service volumes actually went down, right? And then as we pushed out the non-essential service delivery, we got this big pent-up demand about the 60 to 90-day period, and that became a big exercise in managing people, particularly the on-site components and that. And then to what John said, now we're seeing a leveling out aspect as well, but we are still seeing different activities move into the off hours. So we've always been a 24-hour organization, and we're used to managing around our customers, coming up with demands in those off hours. But so I don't know if I can really add to this other than it just takes, it takes leadership, takes understanding your customers, and really understanding your own team, right? And the availability of that team. So again, it goes back to that notion of the more communication you have with everyone, the more successful you're going to be in attacking that problem.
Okay. And I've got another question here, which is the panel has mentioned a number of times documentation. Can the panelists please drill into what kinds of documentation they're actually referring to and which are most important? Who wants to pick up on that one?
I can start, and I take there may be two different aspects of what this question is. Is it internal documentation or documentation that you send your clients? Because the reporting and the metrics on how you're servicing them, that is key. That's critical in showing them, proving the value you're providing them. So that would be the tickets, the resolution time, and over a time period as well, so they can see, okay, well, pre-COVID, here's where I used to be, and then now going into that. Usually that's something that's done on a quarterly basis during a QBR. Let's sit down and look at the past 3 months and see where things have been. On the internal side of it, I'm a huge processes and procedures kind of guy. We documented everything at my old MSP from the moment that we made a cold call to a potential client to the day that we cashed their check. I had everything documented. And once I did that, I was able to see where any of the bottlenecks were and where the processes were falling short and where I needed to make changes and tweak the way we were delivering our business or our solutions. So I think it's key for processes and procedures to document that internally, and then externally for your clients, it's all the metrics you can provide: time, number of tickets over a period of time, and resolution times.
Oliver, do you want any thoughts?
Well, I think Eric is bang on. We use standard operating procedures that we document. When we're faced with a new challenge, we add to that knowledge base with a new process. We provide that knowledge transfer out to the other support engineers. The other thing is KPIs. Again, keeping track of your KPIs, using that valuable data and measuring it over time is key also. Make sure your customers understand their agreements and their support levels, right? This is actually a good time to kind of reinforce and dust those the language behind the agreements out, and maybe make some adjustments, right? That we've all been maybe afraid to make in the past, quite frankly. But right now, it's pretty acceptable to kind of retool some of the language in those support agreements. And when you fix things and you're faced with new incidents and you overcome new things with your customers, document them into a knowledge base so everyone in your organization can learn from that experience. That knowledge transfer is just invaluable, right? Because you don't want to be reinventing the wheel every time there's an incident on the same thing, right? You want to learn the first time and then kind of retool and reuse across future support cases.
Just one thing to add on that, just based on the initial poll, maintaining the profitability of support offering, which was at the highest 75%. I mean, to increase profitability, you have to decrease waste. And decreasing waste isn't necessarily people, it's just wasted time. And if you don't have a documentation platform in place, that your wasted time has to be through the roof. Wasted time is also perishable. You can never get it back. An hour that goes away, you can never get it back. A utilization that's poor for an hour, you can never get that back. That's gone. So you can never get that back. So you need to start document the most common tickets, requests, build a documentation platform. If there's many tools out there currently that are SaaS products that will give you the ability of properly documenting and tracking common issues that you have to make your team more efficient and more productive, which in turn will help you improve your bottom line.
Any particular tools like that you use in your business, John?
We use a product that's used quite commonly by managed service providers. It's called IT Glue. IT Glue, cool. And we're almost out of time, so I'm going to go round all the panelists. We've had a fabulous range of questions coming in from the audience, and I'm going to finish with each of you asking you
if there's one tip for doing a better job of running your support team, bearing in mind the situation we're in today, what would that tip be? And Oliver, perhaps if I can start with you.
So one thing I do to better myself and the team is I always look through my customers to their customers. So what I mean by that is I challenge my customers to help me understand how they're servicing their customers so that I can service them better. That would be a tip I would provide.
John.
Just be a chameleon, like get used to this new normal. Many companies are not opening until, I mean, you've seen it in the news, you see 2021, and this could even change. So just try to seize the opportunity. This is an opportunity for many businesses. If you really look at this, this is a tremendous opportunity, an opportunity that a managed service provider would not typically have. It's been accelerated. So use this as an opportunity to improve upon your business, provide a better service to your customer, and create new service offerings.
And Eric.
I would say flexibility. Tying in with the second last question, your support staff, just be as flexible with them as possible. That's going to boost morale. That's going to improve resolution time. It's going to improve your productivity. Things are crazy for all of us, and if you just listen to your staff's needs and be flexible based on that, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Excellent. I'd like to say a huge thank you to the audience for some great questions. A really big thank you. I think you'll join me in saying thank you to Oliver, Eric, and John for some wonderful answers, some great tips. We have got a couple of questions that we haven't been able to get to, and our panelists have committed to answering those questions, and we'll be able to post them up on the website tomorrow. But Oliver, Eric, John, thank you. Great information, great insights. Really, really appreciate it. And as we close, you'll see a survey coming up, and here is your chance to get another Amazon delivery to your door. Everyone that completes the survey will be entered for a draw for a $100 Amazon card. And just as a reminder, we're going to have a virtual roadshow event on the 21st of October 2020. So please look for information on that one. But Oliver, Eric, and John, thank you so very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone. Thanks, everyone.